Which was the best failure? Was it best to fail at the interview or the mains or at
Sir, I think it's worse to fail in both interview and interview, though it's super worse.
So how was your experience with Sir's classes?
Sir, Dipin Sir's analysis is actually next level.
Increasingly, people are using quotes in introductions and conclusions.
Yeah, if it fits the context, I think you should. Something extra has to be delivered in GS3. This is what I feel. But eventually, after seeing a lot of copies, I thought ki if you can bring a lot of points within that time frame, without breaching 7 minutes and 11 minutes. A for stands for what different I can do in this answer.
Right, okay.
Okay. B was
novelty.
What best practice or some different thing I can employ in this. C was what is the current affairs that I can bring to this answer.
Right.
And D was for any diagram, any dimension that I can add
this is
to this.
ABCD.
Yeah. So this is how I used to remember it, and if
every answer has an ABCD.
Yeah. So for that. Sometimes used to pay off. If you could sit down with your own notes and you can see what is my content utilization ratio.
What was in my notes which I did not use.
So because I made so exhaustive notes with my friend earlier, he was telling me, bhai, we don't need to see anything else.
New. At even least if you bring this into the paper, that's a big deal.
It will be a tremendous thing that we'll do. So we used to work it out in that way.
Hello students, today we have with us Madhav Agarwal. Welcome Madhav.
Thank you so much, sir.
Madhav has secured rank 16, All India rank 16 in CSE 2024. Yes. Madhav has optional commerce and accountancy.
Yes, sir.
This was your 5th attempt.
Yes, sir.
4th mains.
Yes.
3rd interview.
Yes.
Right? When you say it that way, it looks very
enormous.
Right. Can you briefly tell about your journey?
Sir, I started way back in 2020. That time I completed my CA, and there was some void. I was feeling that maybe I should give back.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. So I decided that at least I should try for civil services. Otherwise, there have been a regret.
Is there anyone in the family who's from the services?
No one in the job or service industry also. So more so it's about the business
family. Right.
So because I was the younger one, I got a leeway to really pursue my dreams.
So you have how many siblings?
3.
3 older siblings.
Two older siblings and the third one.
What are they doing?
My sister, she's in Burhanpur.
Okay.
She's a homemaker. Okay. And my brother is handling the business with my father in Gwalior.
Okay.
Sir, so it started with.
Is it difficult to come from a business family and do this?
Opportunity cost is so high. It could be because for the initial ones, I think it's more difficult because they have to.
Parents always have more business expansion plans with children in mind.
Yeah. Right? So that part was taken care of
by your brother
and my father, and he was like, "Yeah, you do it. We are there for you.
Right.
If you want to pursue CA, you do it." That's how it started. And initially, sir, I failed prelims by 0.66 marks.
0.66 marks.
Then the next attempt I failed mains by 1 mark.
1 mark.
So
the third you experienced all different versions of failure.
Yeah. And then it was interview.
Which was the best failure? Was it best to fail at the interview or the mains or at?
Sir, I think it's worse to fail in both interview, though it's super worse
because it comes so close.
Yeah, it's just coming down from the
top snake.
Top snake in the Ludo.
Right.
And snakes and ladder, sorry.
Right.
And then, but I think failure in the first prelims that I got was the maximum time I could utilize on building my notes.
So that's prepare. The best failure you had.
Yes. And I was very glad I had my friend who really helped me through navigate.
He had given mains,
He gave mains in 2019, and that year he could not clear CSAT. So the most amount of effort that I did was in that year. After that, just after mains, it's very difficult to study, get back into the groove, and even during the interview, it's very anxious and stage. So
it's a 5-year plan.
Yes.
How do you stay motivated for such a long time?
Sir, basically, sir, in my case, it was that I was seeing a gradual progress at least. So prelims, I was failing 0.6, then mains, and then I gave the interview. So till that time, it was like, yeah, I'm very close. And in the initial attempts, sense of self-doubt and anxiety was very heavy on me.
Leaving it at some point?
Yeah. So at the 3rd attempt, I was like, bhai, I've given interview also, and now also it's not happening. So better go back to my business, start something of my own.
What was the parents' support like?
After every attempt, it was used to be like a family meeting to decide what should be the way ahead. And so thankfully, every attempt till the 4th one, I was like, yeah, you should give it. Maybe you should give it if you want to give it.
Right.
There is no pressure from our side. But at the 3rd attempt, even my family was like, yeah, this exam shayad hota hi nahi hai. You cannot make it to this exam. And suddenly one of my
That's
friends.
a possibility, right?
Yeah, it is of course larger.
You don't know. Sometimes some things don't happen for a good reason also.
Yeah.
You never know.
And then in that attempt, it was the result that came on Tuesday. Sunday was the prelims.
Okay.
Till that time, I had not even studied
At
prelims.
least in the last 2 attempts, there has
one and a half month gap. So
2-3 days, what do you do when you fail at
yeah,
interview?
so till that time I was not studying. I was only reading polity a little bit. Ki maybe I'll have to give it.
It's like if you know the result today and the prelims is on 25th. That kind of
actually,
even lesser.
Actually. Right. And one of my friend who is an IAS officer in Assam, school friend, he used to tell me कि Madhav रोने का भी time नहीं होता जब result आता है.
You can't even believe.
So that word stuck with me, and one of my friend told me that if you don't want to give an attempt, you have 3 attempts left. No point in saving that. Just go and give prelims and then decide you want to give it this year or
because
not.
a consecutive mains has always more scope for
Yes,
improvement
yes.
if you know what to improve.
Yes, right? And it was that 2023 ka
as long as you don't change an optional.
Yeah,
if you have that change an optional plan in mind, then it's a year off.
Yes, so that 2023 options got changed. All statements and connected and different type of options they built. Right. And clearing that prelims in 4 days prep, because of the cumulative knowledge I had, I was like, yeah, maybe I should give this.
Sometimes I feel prelims is about that presence of mind in that room on that day.
Yeah, it's a big mindset game. First prelims I failed. I came out of the exam and I was like with my father, ki, Papa, if I would have read for 2 more months, I would not have read what comes in the paper.
Right.
So it requires a broad mindset to approach the questions.
The language, the framing.
You understand what could be a possibility sometimes beyond questions. You have to take, eliminate options and do it. So
because I've known people who don't clear prelims despite years of effort.
Yeah.
And I've known people who study for a week and clear prelims.
Yeah.
With 100 marks, like, with the cutoff. So
I think some kind of broad mindset you need to
It's a personality test at the prelim stage because whether you can handle stress,
yeah,
anxiety.
It is a big mindset game. So that is how I put it. Beyond knowledge. So you cannot go wrong with your static questions. So polity का आपने कोई question गलत किया, 2 questions you do wrong, you're behind 5 marks. 2.6 is 2.6.
It's a zero-sum game.
Yeah, and for that to cover up, you'll have to do 2 questions right, which everybody else is doing wrong. Which is a rare possibility. So if you want to clear prelims, you cannot go wrong on the basic questions. You have to be right there. For the other questions, maybe relatively you will go well.
Right. We were associated for mains, answer writing.
Yes.
Mainly. I think we have known since 23, somewhere in 23,
yes,
after your second mains. Second mains, right?
Yes.
And what worked for you in mains? And I believe this year you have made an improvement of 64 marks.
69 marks.
69 marks. That's massive.
Yeah.
Right? And I think in other areas you have lost by 2-3 marks. But
yes.
it's the mains improvement which has really put you where you are.
Specifically the GS aspect that really pushed me this time.
What worked? What all worked?
So I think we should acknowledge the fact that I have been into mains prep for 4 years.
4 years.
So it was cumulative effort, which really maybe the last spark which was left for my answers to get highlighted. So in this attempt, I was really working on those cherry
Were you in
part.
training when mains happened this time?
Sir, I took leave from. I had to skip Labasana to give this.
Right,
so Labasana does not allow you leaves to do it. So that was how it is. But it was also one of the most painful mains, giving it again. In a group where you are selected, but you are still at your desk.
That's more difficult, right? To improve ranks is difficult.
Yeah, at one point we were like really pissed
because
off.
if you look at it statistically, I think the number of people who improve rank as a percentage of number of people who appear is very low.
Very low. So we made a little community of rank up.
Right.
So within the selected group, we made a community. We used to discuss answers. We used to ask the selected ones like AR1, AR2.
What worked for you?
Please guide us because we are sitting on a big pool of resource at that time. So that is how it worked, and it became a very close community to support us throughout.
How many tests did you write last between prelims and main? Was it writing intensive?
It was writing intensive in the later half, so almost maybe 3 a week in the 50% of the time, I think.
Did you have a test day, or you were writing across the week?
Sir, so I used to schedule my tests ki I have to write it on that day, and I usually tend to avoid
one test a day or 2 tests or 3 tests. I'm seeing a trend. There are people trying to write 3 tests a day so that 2 becomes easy.
Oh, that makes sense.
Makes sense. Because whether you write one test or 2 tests, that day is gone.
One test a day. You should, on a long-term basis, you should write at least maybe one test a day only.
Right.
But that too also in the initial,
In
you
that
can
intensity
skip.
phase, you have to go for at least.
But at least one time you should give that feeling of writing 5 tests in 3 days.
3 days.
Because only when you do that, you realize that you'll need short notes for GS3, you need short notes for GS4, because at that third day you'll come back at 6.
It's mentally and physically exhausting.
It's exhausting. You'll not want to read it. You'll be exhausted by the pressure of the first 3 papers.
Come to think of it, if you count all the words you write in those 3 days, you could write a book.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's almost 25,000
Yes.
words.
Yes, yes.
That's a book.
Yes.
Right?
And that too a spontaneous one.
Spontaneous one,
Yes.
right? So notes, you were talking about notes.
Yes.
So how did your note making change from year 1 to 5th attempt?
So my initial note-making framework was that with my friend. So he told me that what we'll do is we'll analyze all the PYQs, mains ka, which are categorized syllabus-wise.
Okay.
So you get it here also.
Right.
We got some compilation
I
from
think
the
we
class.
gave one
Yeah.
PYQ book
Yes.
also. Right?
So yeah, we discussed that.
Right.
So PYQs ka, at that time it was not so good as the book that we have got.
Right.
So what we did was we categorized the PYQs as per syllabus.
So, GS paper 1, society.
Society, within that
Urbanization.
society, secularism. These are the 4
Urbanization,
questions that the
has
UPSC
come.
has asked in the last 10 years. And then we started making notes for secularism. Say.
Right.
So secularism, say it's only a 1-word topic in the syllabus. So that you have to cover. It's very difficult to cover it that way. So, but when you see the questions that the UPSC is asking, so our notes has to ensure that it covers every line of the syllabus and it should answer all the PYQs.
All
also.
the PYQs.
So this is how we started making notes. We took 1 or 2 hours for a month in the morning to analyze the PYQs. We used to sit on a Google
And
Meet.
I think eventually you notice that compared to prelims and mains, you can anticipate what comes, at least the themes.
Yeah. So that really helped you identifying the themes. What areas, in what areas UPSC is asking scheme-based questions. Suppose in agriculture, sometimes they ask scheme-based questions. Directly a scheme is being asked. So, but when you don't analyze this, you end up preparing schemes for all the topics. They'll ask in economics also, which is a possibility.
You spread yourself too lightly.
Yes. So
too thinly.
Identifying those themes really helped me. And we prepared our notes together. We used to sit on a Google Meet. We used to read our stuff, whatever we have studied in our class
read
notes.
the PYQ, read the syllabus, and make sure that this note is aligned with the syllabus keyword and the PYQ's dimension.
Yeah. So this is the main masala that is
bulky?
ready. Not so much, sir. But
like what would a paper 1 notes be? How thick?
Sir, it was a digital note.
It was a digital note.
Yeah, digital note. So
does digital notes get more bulkier because it's easier to copy paste?
It is, but you have to take a restraint, I think.
Right.
Because at that point, once your notes are ready, you realize that now if I have almost, say, you're discussing Panchayati Raj.
Right.
I have, say, 6 problems of Panchayati Raj, 6 solutions.
Right.
Now you read an editorial on Panchayati Raj. You get maybe one more good argument. You add it there. But after
One
that,
case study.
Yeah, after that, I think you should not read another editorial on Panchayati Raj. Right. That is how you improve on skipping.
So you have to have a restraint also.
Yeah, and you add everything there.
But how does that happen? Because every day you are coming across some new content and every new thing looks shiny.
Yeah, it looks but it fades away by the time you give me. I had one small Telegram channel. I used to make hashtags, GS1 Society. Hashtag, this is the thing I learned today. Right. Maybe from the model answers, maybe from some news article. I used to add it there. And during my mains cycle, I used to go through that. If it still looks important, I used to add it.
What was your favorite model answer topper's answer to refer? Whom did you copy most?
No, sir, it was
across.
It was
across.
Throughout. And I understood.
Was it useful to look at topper's copies?
It is. And I think one time you should, mains mein what people usually do is they understand it's about writing. Right. They start writing and they keep writing and repeating the same thing. Right. They forget that they have to improve. So basically in my
it becomes a routine.
And it is also because of the time constraints. So people don't have the time to read mock test paper solutions.
I think there is also a personal bias or prejudice that comes when we keep writing and when we keep looking at it.
Yeah. And
it's always important. You should have a second or third eye.
Correct. And if you sit with your copy, you sit with a topper's copy of that test. Same test and the model answers. You do that for one subject, at least one copy, take 2-3 hours. Right. Sit, what is the feedback that you have got? What is the different thing that topper has done? And then write down your learning points. These are the 5 learning points I'll improve in my next test.
That is how call it the green pen thing. Like copies are checked in red. You buy a green pen, sit with it, Could I have written a better introduction?
Yes.
Should I have written more value addition? Should I have written more dimensions? You have to constantly do.
It doesn't matter if you're just repeating that.
And the more you do for themes and some of those themes hit, that's where the marks improve.
Yeah. So I remember reading one of the copies in that it has a question on tackling Kashmir problem through I think soft power.
Soft power. I think that was our question.
Yeah, and then the next year the question came was winning hearts and minds strategy. How does it work?
Right.
So in that, the topper used the conclusion that Kashmir cannot be won by the spirit of the sword of the spirit of sword. It can be won by the spirit of
Quotes
power.
are working.
In the words of Kalhana in Ratnagiri.
Quotes are working.
Yeah, so I remembered that quote and I dumped it in the exam also.
Right.
So
increasingly people are using quotes in introductions and conclusions.
Yeah, if it fits the context, I think you should use
Did
it.
you have a lot of quotes in your
So
arsenal?
Optional mein, it was a lot more useful because there we have quotes directly from the thinkers also. So they really condense your argument sometimes. But in this time I tried to make in GS1 also some common quotes that I could use, say in art and culture.
Okay.
So maybe I'll write that dynasties may rise and fall, but their cultural contributions are forever.
Right.
Now, if the questions come on Guptas, I'll write Gupta's dynasties cultural contribution.
You contextualize it to the question.
Yeah. So every sculpture is a silent storyteller.
Right.
It's a very simple thing.
It's a very simple thing.
Remember it also. But
I think it stands out compared to other generic conclusions.
So I'll just write every sculpture from the Gupta dynasty is a silent storyteller of India's rich heritage. This is how I'll conclude the question if it comes on Gupta.
You were telling me that you were constantly practicing introductions and conclusions.
Yeah. So sometimes, this is also a part of brainstorming for GS1 that really worked for me, sir. I used to buy test papers, and in my free time, rather than reading another modern Indian history book which I got bored of reading again and again, I used to think I'll practice this paper and see what more I can learn from, because GS1 is completely static.
Solution-based preparation is happening because it's easier.
Yeah, and you analyze, say 20 questions are there. I'll maybe practice these 7. These are unique ones.
So you won't write the whole answer. You'll just brainstorm.
I'll just brainstorm for the 50% of the time. So 7 minutes, I'll do it in 3.5 minutes. I'll write what is the introduction. I'll keywords. Body, I'll break it into 2 parts. These are the 4 or 5 keywords I'll drop in. Conclusion will go around this. And this I used to do with my friend also.
It's a constant exercise.
Yeah, and it helps you also tackle the problem of not able to complete the papers. Say ethics, you're not able to complete papers before you're actually writing the
interpretation is at least 1 minute per question.
Yeah.
Thinking of what to write. Across the paper, that's 20 minutes. That's enough to write 3 10 markers.
Yes. So once you are into that groove of brainstorming faster, you also end up finishing your paper quicker.
Right. Going back to the notes, so you did this from PYQs.
Yes.
Did you have value addition notes? You were showing me all those diagrams, all those graphs, right?
So eventually, sir, those were my standard notes which are still there. But in that also, like as I was making it with my friends, some arguments were more likable to my friend, but I was like, maybe I do not agree more to it. So for that, I used to sequence, prioritize my sequence in my digital notes.
Also, it's not just the sequence of the answers, but the sequence of arguments within an answer.
Yes.
Because most of the time, our brain throws fillers first and good arguments come later.
Yeah. and once you read your own copy or you check someone's copy, you analyze that it really gives a bad impression. It gives a bad impression. So any point you're starting with the solution as we should use IEC campaign for awareness. It is like you can use it for everything. It is important, but keep it as your last point. And sir, so the short notes I was eventually gradually making it for everything.
How bulky was a short note? That would be pages, I guess.
Yeah, it was in pages, especially for the GS3 and GS4 because you don't get time to read those. And even for GS1, so my notes are below that, and above that I have made only 4 or 5 lines of secularism. Introduction, I'll use this.
Gandhi's quote.
Gandhi's quote will be say conclusions. These are the problems. I remember the problems, but problems ka framework I have written. I have analyzed the problem at individual level, societal level, media level, political level, or economic level. What are the problems that lead to secularism being hampered through communal problem? So, and these are the way forward. This is the committee I'll write, and in that only I used to say if it's a pink highlight, whatever I'm forgetting.
Color highlight. That is interesting. Within the notes.
In the digital copy itself.
Right. Okay.
So within that, if it's a pink highlight, I'll say whatever I'm forgetting, it's a yellow highlight. On that day, I'm only reading the yellow highlights, and that is how I used to reduce my workload. And while I'm reading, in the later attempts, like the graph sheet that you were discussing, all the facts are already in your notes that you have prepared and that you have read from model answers or your class notes.
How many data points would you remember? Would you have mugged up?
Sir, in my final attempt, at least in the 4th and the 5th one, we used to sit live on Google Meets with my friend, and each day I used to, whenever I'm remembering any data, I used to make a small question around it.
Right.
So to active recall those questions. So acha, what is the employment trend in our country? What was it before? This is a short way I'll write it. What is the contribution of say textile sector? What is the border expenses that the government has increased from say 2014 to 2024 in a decade? What change it has happened? Environmental ka, climate change ka, sea levels, or any
answers have become extremely data heavy.
It is also paying off sometimes.
It is paying off.
And
no, but I always tell that most of the questions are generic questions. Even your brother in 10th standard, 12th standard can write an answer.
Yes.
What differentiates a ranker level answer is your ability to substantiate it with the right
example
value
context. And for this also, sir, I made this ABCD framework in which because once I realized that when I used to study the topper's answer, at this point, I also know. This point is written in the model answer. I also know.
The problem is that when you see a topper's answers, you realize you can do it. But once you start writing, you write the way you write.
Yeah. Right. So I made this ABCD framework. So A stands for what different I can do in this answer.
Right. Okay.
B was
novelty.
What best practice or some different thing I can employ in this. C was what is the current affairs that I can bring to this answer.
Right.
And D was for any diagram, any dimension that I can add to this.
ABCD.
Yeah. So this is how I used to remember it, and
every answer has an ABCD.
Yeah. So for that, sometimes used to pay off, because if you're writing a question on say Northeast insurgency, if you think what are the current aspects that you can think of, is the Manipur conflict or the AFSPA being revoked there. So these are the two things that you have read it.
Right.
But
unless you have a template, you can't collate things from different parts of your head into that answer.
So this I developed it when I read the model answers and
the topper
copy, that I know it. It's just that I'm not able to.
We discussed about Aditya's answer on animal husbandry.
Yes.
right.
So it was so data heavy that I realized that maybe I'll have to extend.
You remember 2 things, he had 6 things.
Yeah. So it was, I realized it that GS3 mein, especially it has to be economic answer should look like an economic answer with
a graph, with a pie chart.
Yeah, agriculture, if you have some graphs ready, and if you make it ready way before, and that is how you try to apply
if you practice, revise it enough.
So, but don't end up just focusing on the cherry right now.
Right.
If you have your cake build up, then only you put go for it.
This is on top of your conceptual understanding, your base knowledge, and
yes.
then you have to. Somebody used the right word, embellishment.
Okay.
Decorations, these are the decorations. You put all those party poppers and things like that. So these are the decorations in your answers. Right.
So, and also, sir, so for the facts, I used to make those small questions. I used to revise that. It's this fact I'm forgetting. So, and we used to play out also with my friends.
So it's an iterative process.
Yeah, and you naturally will develop some patterns in data. This is this. This was
and
more than this.
Cross syllabus usage.
Yeah, and that was the point, sir. So with each data, you should try to think of what all places that
where all you can use it.
Even for the committee.
Right.
If there are 50 odd committees that you're remembering, each committee talks about some holistic issue. It does not talk about an issue in isolation.
Right.
So when you see it that way, you can use that committee in multiple places.
Right.
For a data, say you should remember say 5-10 such data which can be used across. For example, poverty. There was this comment by UN that India pulled out 800 million people out of poverty just by smartphones.
Right.
So now you can use this data in poverty. You can use this data in e-governance,
right.
Social justice.
Right.
You can use this data if you're talking about say technological ethics.
Right. Paper 3 security.
You can use of smartphone. So some kind
ethics also somewhere you can throw it.
Yeah, technological governance employed. So if you brainstorm it this way, the same data will be used at multiple places.
Data has to be developed. It has to be interlinked. It has to be contextualized in the places where you can use it.
Yeah, beforehand. And once you see your answer copies, you sit with your friend if you are doing it that way, or with yourself, and you see, what are the points that did not enter from my notes to that copy.
This is something that we were discussing.
Yeah, so
eventually you make great notes.
Yeah.
But then you don't have great answers.
So more than model answers, if you could sit down with your own notes and you can see what is my content utilization ratio.
What was in my notes which I did not use.
So because I made so exhaustive notes with my friend earlier, he was telling me, bhai, we don't need to see anything else.
New. At least if you bring this into the paper, that's a big deal.
It will be a tremendous thing that we'll do. So we used to work it out that way.
Right. Dipin Sir.
Yes, sir.
So how was your experience with Sir's classes?
Sir, Dipin Sir's analysis is actually next level.
Right.
He used to...
It's a catchphrase now. Next IAS pe next level analysis by Dipin Sir. Right.
So, I attended his classes online and I used to see what level of analysis arguments he's doing at the back end to bring those stuff to us in a source.
He brings things from places. I always ask him, where do you get this from? What do you read?
It's a trade secret.
It's a trade secret. So I know this person personally. I think he reads 5 newspapers, right?
He must be.
Because he goes through everything to work on something.
To come at something very particular.
Right.
So, Dipin Sir is very exhaustive. He covers all the themes properly, especially the IR section. He uses a lot of quotes. And I used to...
I think all the PSIR student joins for using in his optional.
He's very good at
and I
exploring
like his,
a topic.
Notes.
Yeah, it's very good. Cursive handwriting.
I thought first it was a font. Right? Because
it's not a font.
It's not a font. It's a handwriting. That man sits and writes this. Like, he writes it.
I hope he's not giving mains.
I hope he doesn't give mains. Like, because that's a handwriting you can't match.
No, sir. Right. So, but even with his notes, but when you understand and see his classes, that concept remains in your head for years.
Right.
So I saw it 2 years back.
I like the way he brings in quotes, books.
Very good quote. So for G20...
Anything you remember?
For G20, he used a quote that our external affairs minister quoted it, ki G20 made India world ready and world India ready.
Okay.
So this is a very short quote. For IR also, he gives a lot of quotes and terms which are very applicative. Once we were discussing something about foreign policy, he used that Pandit Nehru used to tell ki we are not pro-Russian or pro-American.
Right.
We are only pro-Indian. We are on nobody else's side. We are on our own side. So this discussion on non-land movement came in my interview.
So you used it there.
And the chairperson was asking me Pandit Nehru wise on bringing up non-aligned movement.
Right.
And I could just remember that quote somehow during that moment, and I thought I should really put it out.
Dipin Sir got into your body. I am going to give this quote.
And Dipin Sir's some short motivation and discipline also tweaks in between the classes. I used to record his videos to see it later. Because what Dipin Sir gives you all the resources. Right. It's up to you how you take it ahead.
How you use it.
And after watching his classes, I realized that this ABCD wala format maybe current affairs, I should pick it up from there.
Right.
And I used to list down his main topics. This topic I can use it here also. And
I think that thematic approach is better than going behind the newspaper on a daily basis. It's themes from which questions are
because
coming.
mains require a little more analysis compared to that, and he's doing it for you.
Right.
That is very good.
And that's the value he brings in, because
yes,
you have to do your part. You have to internalize, contextualize it and put it into answers, but he'll at least tell you what to put.
Yeah, and after the class also you used to take up 1 or 2 questions to write, and then you used to
write answers in the class also.
Yeah, so, and then you used to see, this context can be used here, this context can be used here. And after 4 or 5 classes, he used to bring data points from the first class. I told you that, why are you not bringing it here? Right. So some kind of subsidies given to the farmers in US and
current affairs is one of the most difficult subjects to teach, because you have to be constantly preparing every day, revising again and again.
So I did those classes during the mains. I wish I would have done it before. So it would have led to more...
Maybe saved you one attempt. You would have gotten the rank sooner.
More consolidation and more. So in the following years, I focused on more applying those concepts, which I learned from my friend also. Because all we were reading quotes which were given by it, but he was using it. So I thought if he
was
could
telling you
use
how
it,
to use it, where to use it.
If he could use it, I thought I should also.
You should also use it.
Maybe
because I think the quality of answers is going up. See, what worked as a great answer in 2020, a beginner would write now.
Yes.
Right? See, the difference is that I gave my last attempt almost 12 years back. And when we used to write mains, we don't have test series. We directly go to the examination hall and write. Right?
That's very hard to imagine.
Right. Now, if you look at a foundation program, like Next IAS foundation program, there is a test from week 1. So by the time they reach mains, they are writing weekly class tests, monthly class tests, then mains test series, then simulators. The amount of writing has gone up.
So it is also good now. We learn by standing on the shoulders of the giants.
Right.
So the 2020 answer was the giant.
We build that AIM program. No,
Yes,
make people write. Just sit and write. Don't. There's no shortcuts on this.
Yeah.
Write and write and write.
Dipin Sir is also the interview guidance
Classes.
Current affairs that he covers in, I think, 4-5 classes.
3-4 classes.
3-4 classes he does it. I think nobody can do it better than him because if he's very detailed in terms of preparing for mains, he's as crisp as it is needed for interview.
The behind the scene for that is that, he'll first list the topic, then he'll call different people. He'll like, ye question aayenge, so what will you say? So he'll brainstorm, then he'll read, then he'll add on top of it. Because in interview, you need to have practical application of the data rather than just having...
Correct. And in mains, he used to tell me, Acha, you salami slicing strategy, you put these terms in IR. And in interview, he was telling me, never use my term. Right. Because at that point, they might ask you to explain it.
Right.
And go into detail of something.
They might look not knowing something. Yeah. It's not a good thing to be.
Yeah. Right. So it was completely opposite and actually friendly for the interview preparation.
So going into answer writing,
yes.
Introductions and answers. What was your approach? Extent of introduction, what were you doing?
Sir, earlier, because we try to prepare introductions if possible in some areas. But in my later attempts, what I tried to hit was ki if my introduction itself could give a feel to the examiner that maybe
first impression.
Yeah, I know this is what I'm going to write in my answers.
This is why I am different from other people.
And integrate some, maybe if quote is possible, some data in, if you're talking about polity, we are going on articles and explaining that. So that could be one aspect which you can go in introduction.
Okay. And how was your introductions and conclusions different? Did you have the same approach or a different approach?
Sir, conclusions, sometimes I used to practice conclusions only by taking up a paper. These are 20 questions. I'll only write conclusions for the 20 questions. Right. And that brainstorming of questions, which I used to do in half the time, 3.5 minutes per question. At that moment also, I was developing conclusions. I was discussing it with my friend, what conclusion I'm writing, what conclusion I am writing. And because of the notes I had, I could also say one way forward or some key term to put it into.
Did you have both way forward and conclusion, or it was?
Sometimes yes.
You had both.
I had way forward and conclusion. For example, even a dry area like art and culture I discussed, I had some themes in mind. I'll use, say, Viksit and Adhyatmik Bharat.
Right.
I can use that term. If G20 was going around, we had the Culture Unites Us All campaign. So I had these keywords in mind. If I could put them there, so it just like final cherry on the cake.
Right. And how many points in the body? More point intensive, more explanation intensive?
Sir, I think especially in the GS3 and GS2, if you are going little more dense in terms of a content, and that ABCD ka D, if you're bringing more dimensions to your answer. So if the question is on a generic question about the way, say, millets are working in an agriculture, you are opening up the more dimensions there. But at the end, in like only a half a page at the end, 1/3 of that space you are giving, say, 5 quick challenges what the millets bring, and in the conclusion itself you are giving the solution.
Like the Aditya's hover model.
Yeah. So
something extra.
Something extra has to be delivered in GS3. This is what I feel. But eventually, after seeing a lot of copies, I thought ki if you can bring a lot of points within that time frame, without breaching 7 minutes and 11 minutes.
See, your improvement in GS is effectively half a mark, 0.75 mark in every question.
Yeah.
So that's how, if you break it down. So you have to give that reason for that evaluator to give you that half mark more.
Yes, and it looks, but you should not breach the time limit, and it should be little more presentable.
The 10 minutes thing, that's new for me, right?
Yeah.
You said I don't take 11 minutes, I take 10 minutes. Can you explain that?
Sir, so the overall paper attempting strategy I changed this time was ki, when earlier I used to attempt 15 markers, all the 15 markers, and then at the end I was doing the 1 to 10. 10 markers.
So first 4 questions, 30-40 minutes.
So this time what I did different was ki, the first 4 questions set the image in the mind of the examiners. Right. But I also didn't wanted to write all the first 10 questions first. Right. So what I used to do is in the first 5 minutes of reading the paper, I used to focus on the first 4 questions. I used to read them, whatever
But
comes to my
I've
mind.
noticed one more thing, that most of the time, the first question in every paper is a difficult question.
It might be take your
Art
time.
and culture,
It might be take your time.
Take your time.
And just ensure that you're doing something different there.
Right.
And I used to remember any dimension, any graph, diagram, whatever I've read, I tried to use those in
It's
those.
an outcome of practice also.
And this I used to practice in my test also. So 4 questions I used to focus more, and I used to take 30 minutes to write those 4 questions, 7.5 minutes per question for 10 markers, which usually you take 7.
Right.
So 5 minutes extra I'm also giving to already. So my first 4 answers will be very dense.
Right.
Then I used to start with my 15 markers. And 15 markers mein usually the trend is to take 11 minutes. But tracking that 11 minutes is very difficult, sir. 11, 22, 23.
23.
Yeah, so I did that. I'll write it in 10 minutes.
So 3 questions every 30 minutes.
3 questions every 30 minutes. I used to keep a track of 10 minutes also, but at the 30 minutes block, it used to satisfy me that 3 questions I have completed. And at the end, I used to get around 45 minutes if I'm very good. Right. And 40, it's the usual time that I used to get. And in that, I have to write 6 questions. So writing a 10 marker fast is easier than writing a fast 15 marker, because in 15 marker, you can get more marks compared to, so getting a 1 mark in 10 marker is difficult than getting a 1 mark there. So,
ROI is better in 15 markers.
So you should deploy more force and analysis there. And you in the 10 markers also, you'll realize one question that you don't know.
What did you do for such kind of questions which you don't
attempt
know?
At the end, right. And just be, for example,
how many minutes for a bluff?
Sir, whatever time is left.
Right,
whatever time. If 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever is left.
Right.
5 minutes would be very much.
Right.
4 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever is left. So this time,
so that is a text intensive diagram, and big fonts,
big diagrams, filling up the page. Right. So this time the question came on twisters.
Right.
I am not a geographical background, so मेरे को उसका इतना context नहीं था, but cyclonic, I thought something around cyclone.
That's what most people have done.
And I drew also just a scribble like this. It would look like a storm we used to make in classroom.
Half a page.
I drew 2 of them. I realized why did I draw?
But it filled the page.
Why did I draw 2 of them? And on the next page, I drew the whole world map with the Gulf of Mexico being highlighted, because the question was on
that took half a page again.
Yeah, that took half a page, and then this is how you fill.
But I think other answers would have been decent. That's why it will not get penalized.
Yeah. So this was my strategy to really set an impression at the first stage, and maybe ignore if my if I'm
but
going
scores
bad.
have done. I think you have got 462.
Yes.
Right. I think that's among the top 3 scores in the country right now.
Yes.
Right. So that is with respect to ethics. Anything you have tried this year?
Sir, ethics, I was unable to write very.
Ethics has not done as well as paper 1, 2, 3.
But sir, for me, it got me 20, 24, 26 more marks. So the ethics paper also, earlier in 2019, if you could just remember the keywords, examples, governance examples, quotes, and you have that one sheet, you could score 120. Right. But now the
that's
paper, now that's not anywhere enough. For ethics, time is a big issue. So you have to have some
case studies
memory.
First or part A first?
I used to do earlier case studies first.
That takes more time.
That is something also mechanical that your mind will do it at the end, even when it is stressed.
And I think the subjectivity for the evaluator to reward in case studies would be higher. Because it's a given situation and it's asking you to react.
Yes.
And they could always have a prejudice with respect to the way you react to that situation.
So the mistake that I was doing in GS also, not attempting the first 4 questions. So in
setting
ethics,
the tone.
Yeah, in ethics I used to do that only. So
part A first.
Part A first, and doing good there.
Right.
Case studies are little. They have a set format, set structure that you'll do. So even when your mind is tired, it's a 5th paper, 3rd day, 5th paper, last 1.5 hours. Your mind is little screwed.
You're exhausted.
It's screwed up. It's afternoon.
No,
you want to just finish the paper.
Sick by that time.
Yeah, they do. And ultimately, just your pen is writing, your mind has stopped working. And writing those theory questions in that mode, I think, is not one.
Code-based questions, what was the approach?
Sir, code-based questions, so breaking it into parts. Right. Introduction, you could be around, if you know that thinker, you could talk something around that on his contribution. And if you could bring out the relevance of that code, if it's individually targeted, say individually, personally, on the governance.
Context of dimensions.
Some codes require you to substantiate it. and some quotes are something like you have to build arguments on. So it will be a mini essay,
It's a
mini essay kind of scenario. If there is some scope, you can bring some antithesis to it.
Right.
So just say falsehood takes the place of.
I always suggest that there should be a template to approaching quotes because
Yeah.
most likely that's the last three answers you're writing.
Three, yes.
Right.
And so there was a question on falsehood takes the place of truth if it turns into unblemished good.
Right.
But you cannot end this answer without bringing and criticizing falsehood.
Right.
That it cannot be a universal phenomena that you're
Counter.
being false everywhere. So that is how you close your answer and conclude properly.
Okay. You've scored 200 plus in interview
Yes, sir.
twice.
Yes, sir.
How does that work?
Sir, interview.
Is it a smile?
Yeah, it is.
It is a smile.
One of the factors that I realized when I was seeing my mock interviews, I'm like, I have a good smile.
Very
why is it
pleasant
not?
personality.
Why is it not coming out in my mocks?
Right.
So that is one thing which I observed.
So, I think most people take it too seriously. Like,
Yeah, it should
try
not
to become
take
more mechanical.
No. And the aspect that we were discussing about the quotes in Dipin Sir's class. So in my first attempt, because of the nurturing which I got from mock interviews, that you should speak less, you should speak in 30 seconds, 1 minute, but you end up being too cryptic. But like when you don't write in mains, you won't get marks. If you won't speak out,
they judge you if you don't speak?
So I decided that I'll speak it out, whatever I want to, but I'll not beat around the bush.
This year, I think the expectation of the panel would be higher because you went as an officer.
Yeah.
Right, but you still lived up to it.
Yeah, I was worried if
because
I
think it's always difficult because you are going as an officer.
Yeah. Right. So one or two things that I think works out it, you better stay calm and
be yourself, be natural, be honest.
Maybe fake it until you make it.
Right.
Try to smile more, and that you can do with your practice. In situational questions, often you will be put into situation which you not even imagined in your life.
Right.
So once
So this time there was a lot of weird, different questions by the panel. Because
so they put me in a situation because I had been a leader in my school and college.
Right.
They put me into a situation where I'll make you a leader in the freedom struggle of India.
Nice.
1900s.
Right.
So what will you do there? And
1900. Okay.
1900 specifically, she told me. And this was the last question. So I think you get some sixer questions in your interviews.
Right.
And this was a sixer question which I could not tap. I got 171 back.
What did you say?
So I gave a very basic answer ki maybe I'll motivate the youth, I'll make it a large movement.
What would you would have had an afterthought on that?
So I thought that in such questions, first is you should ask for time. Ma'am, I want to think for a few seconds on this question.
That's a very out of the box question.
Yeah, so you never think it that way. So you should first show ki I think and speak. I'll buy time. So I'll think, ma'am, I want to think for 10-15 seconds. They'll obviously say yes. And those 10-15 seconds inside the boardroom are equal to 5 minutes outside because you're in a very tense
10-15
situation.
seconds is a lot of time.
A lot of time to think and answer.
And it's an awkward pause in a room with 5-6 people.
But you get points there.
Right.
So after that, when I was analyzing back, and you could link it to your DAF.
Right.
Some questions you could link it to DAF because second, third level questions you also have to answer. Right. So I have played hockey, sir, at the states level in Indore. So I thought I could have said this. Sir, ma'am, I'll start some secret society around hockey. I'll organize hockey tournament. Youth will get fit. And within that, like the Ganesh Mela of Tilakji, there will be a secret society working for the movement. Second, sir, I am into finance and commerce. Independence movement needs finance. I'll work on that aspect, partner with industrialists, sell my cause and ensure that the financial bloodline of the movement.
In hindsight, we all are smart.
Yes. So that is where we think now that ABCD form word. We know everything. We know the stuff. It's just about.
I remember this year there was a question which was asked to, I think, an anthropology optional student.
Okay.
That, if you were to make a cricket team of all your favorite anthropologists, right? I think that was something, right?
Even if you can pick 2-3 players with smartness in that question, you take your time, man. Right. I have not really thought about it. Give me some time.
And I remember this question very vividly. Like, we are not playing Pakistan in cricket for XYZ reasons. Afghanistan does not have a women's team, so should we not play Afghanistan also? Right? So where do you draw the line?
Yeah, sometimes they really put you into situation
because I think they are also aware that in this side of outside of UPSC, everybody is being trained, coached.
Yeah.
And they'll also have to think extra to take you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And by the time you go to that interview room, when you sit outside, another candidate is inside.
Right.
You're sitting on that chair for 5 minutes.
That's very scary.
You forget everything. And I think that is their trick.
This happens to a lot of people. Like, one time they went to the interview, got a low score with the panel. Second year, you're getting the same panel. And then they are sitting outside.
you're reliving that trauma.
Reliving that trauma.
But regardless of panel, sir, if you are able to express yourself, you are revising your static also, because there's a gap between the mains. If you're not reading after your mains till the time you're giving interview, you stay connected to a static as well. Your notes, particularly, just give them a
and
one
I don't
rough
think
read.
you can match their knowledge or experience.
No,
or
and
they're so senior people.
150 years of experience.
Experience or more.
And you're not even 30.
30.
So you cannot
You
bluff
just
them.
be humble, polite.
And the best answer to a question you don't know is no. And you have not arrived. They have not arrived in their life. So why are you just trying to gather a lot of content and then see?
Don't try to be oversmart.
No sense. No sense at all.
I know a student who went to the same panel 4 times. The 4th time, the ma'am recognized him. Tum fir aa gaya. This also happens.
Let me go now, please.
But I think his score went from 130, 140 to 190. I think his personality would have changed substantially over the time. It's a journey, this whole UPSC preparation is
Yes.
one hell of a
It
journey.
almost sometimes feel like I started yesterday.
Right.
But it is big 5
We were
years.
seeing your answers earlier, and when you look back at the answers you wrote, how did I write this? And you look back to your early answers, you're like, I wrote this. This is my answer. So you go through all phases
there are different iterations that you're improving. So you cannot just come to this level directly. You have to write some bad answers. You don't delay your writing your
Journey
answer.
of 1,000 miles.
Yeah, begin with the first steps.
First steps. Right. So anything else you want? Last minute tips for people who are writing prelims this year.
It's almost less than a week. Better you
I think
not.
you cleared prelims with this kind of a timeline once after failing an interview.
सर मेरा सर टेस्ट के जो भी मॉक टेस्ट में देता था उसके नोट्स बने रहते थे, तो मेरा फोकस था आई यूज्ड टू रिवाइज दैट because those were my mistakes.
Right. So you will focus on the things which went wrong.
And those are my learnings ultimately. Right. And in the last 10 days I used to pick up 10 UPSC ka full papers, and used to solve them one by one, reading every question, every statement and marking. Most of that you will do right because you have referred to PYQs before. But going through that in the last 10 days enters you into a UPSC mode. Earlier you were only solving coaching, test series and everything. But once you do that, do it in a reverse format, 23, 22, so that you do the latest ones. And the themes enter your mind, how UPSC is framing questions, that enters your mind. And I think that is very helpful. And revise.
Any advice to people who have been preparing throughout the year and now have cold feet? Like, now thinking that, I should not. But they worked, I know a lot of people have worked so much throughout the year, but 1 week away from the exam is like, agle saal de dete.
I don't think this should be a game plan as of now. It is anxious. It is scary when you see the numbers, but it is possible. If you are anxious now, you'll only perform under your potential. So when you see it like that, practically, sir, I read a book on Power of Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. Okay. So in that, it's what you sow is what you get.
Manifestation.
So if you are manifesting it that like it is difficult, it will actually happen that way. So just come out, and prelims is a mindset game apart from knowledge, because you don't have to do the basic questions correct. And
there are no perfect attempts. I've never met anyone who said that is bar phod dunga.
And even
nobody.
And even after coming out of prelims, you'll not be sure ki is bar ho gaya, because after 45 questions, it's about going less wrong in those next 40 questions, and avoiding the 15 ones which you don't have to attempt, in which you have no idea about. So just apply your knowledge, whatever you have learned, try to apply that, and that way you will succeed.
Thank you so much for your time, Madhav.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Really wish you a great career.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for making me look less fit. No. I don't like interviewing IPS people because you guys are more fit and
so thank you so much. Sir.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.